as we got with from the last episode, I actually had to put in another section because the section that we were using wasn't going to come down enough. You know, I could have put relief cuts in it and welded it all up, but I thought it was just better to put in another section and just sort of belt it to where we need. It's already been seam sealed, and put the pedestal up there for like a shift boot, because I'm probably not going to run a console in this at all. Never say never, but at this stage I kind of wanted some sort of pedestal there for the shift boot. I'll probably put like a small console behind, because we're going to run buckets in this car. So I'm going to get on to doing Dynamat now and try and finish off this floor.
Day 2.
What I'm going to do now is actually get stuck in these brake lines. I finally got all the parts I need to get the brake lines done, and I'm also going to start fabricating that that brace while I can stand in here and really get good access to it. I don't want the motor in the way while I'm trying to do grinding and welding and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so brake lines. People tend to get a little bit funny with brake lines. Look, I understand if you don't trust yourself, or you know, you don't want to get into it. It's you know, that's fine. There's plenty of guys out there. There's brake shops that will do your brake lines for you, get it all sorted out. I've gone and got, you know, I've had rubber hoses made. This hose is the connection from the body of the car to the diff. So the soft line takes up that suspension travel as it's going down the road. You definitely need that. You cannot run a hard line in between. So I've already had that made up. You know, these don't cost much. If you can find someone who does do brake lines, I think honestly this line with the fittings, it's got a T-piece to go to each drum on the rear, and that's actually just a thread to bolt to something. So you can actually make a bracket come down off it and bolt it straight to it so it stays still. And then the other side goes up to a bracket that has a retaining clip, and you put your hard line into the end of it. So that hose there, to me, I'm trying to remember now, but I think it was like $60. You know, they're not going to break the bank on things like that. That's a custom made line. I just gave them a measurement, and yeah, they just crimped it up on the spot for me. So I've got that part done. But what I did a long time ago was, I think it was pretty much when I was building that 32, I started sitting there going, if I take the car down to get brake lines done, you know, somewhere in the vicinity of $1,000. I don't think you'd have much change out of $1,000 for all the brake lines to be done. Now, of course, on the 32, I had soft lines made for the front wheel cylinders and things like that, and the one to the diff. The kit that was on for this car that I explained in an earlier episode, the brake upgrade kit actually had the soft lines going up to the brackets on the inner guard. So we just have to run hard lines back into them. I could have run the original ones, but they were set up for four-wheel drum, so it's single circuit. So I'd rather just replace the whole lot. Anyway, getting back, I just decided it's time to spend some money on some tools. If I'm going to be doing this, you know, I always say it's going to be the last time, but I've had mates borrow this tool and they love it. This thing is unbelievable, and it's really cheap. It does multiple style flares. It's you just turn it to whatever tip you need to be able to flare it. It does come with an instruction kit to show you, you know, what you should be doing, which one first. So this will actually do a double flare. It will crimp it down into like a bulb, and then it will push that tip in on another setting and turn it into a double flare. It's really easy. You cannot stuff it up. The only time you'll stuff it up is when you forget to put the nut on the line before you crimp it, and then you have to cut the flare off. You know, constantly got to remind myself to do that, and it never fails that sometimes you'll end up leaving the nut off. So yeah, I love this machine. Like, I had the handheld one that you had to just twist up, and it could never really do it properly, where this one is just really easy. It has a pin to pull out, you push it over, the die itself locks together, and it just grips the hose, the hard line that you're using, and all you have to do is put it at the end of the die. So yeah, it couldn't be easier. So today I'm going to start making some of those lines, and get them started fitting on the car and get these brake lines out of the way. The other thing that I managed to get, actually was going to buy one, and then I spoke to a mate and he said, I've got one, I'm not doing anything with it at the moment, you can borrow it. This thing will make your work look really neat. This is actually a tube straightener. Now this little bit that I've got here, this came out of, you can't really get it in view properly, but you can see if I hold it up like that. It came with the kit. It was just curled up, and this is what tends to happen. You end up getting all these little bends and bumps and everything in it. No matter how hard you sort of try and straighten it out, it'll always, you know, like have little bumps and ups and downs in it. So this machine here is designed to take all those out. So I'll try it on this because I'm not using this bit of line, but you know, I've got all this line here to use. This actually will uncurl pretty straight. I did pretty well without using this on the 32. It was actually pretty straight. So we'll run this through and I'll show you what it does. Now I've had to cut the end off them and get the fittings, nut fittings off, because they're only going to get in the way while trying to do this. As I said, I'm not using this, so this is the first time I've used this machine, but it's just a matter of running it through and through until it starts not to. It's got some springs in there that'll let this bounce up and down a little bit. You've got to twist and rotate it as you're going backwards and forwards through there and just get a little bit more tension on it. Keep going backwards and forwards with it. That's actually pretty good. Now, ignoring the fact that it has got a bow in it, as you can see, a lot of those little bumps and kinks have come out of that. Now, it's probably, like, this is the first time I'm actually trying to use this machine. I've used one in the past, which I think was actually adjusted perfectly for a 3/16 line. So I've got to try and figure that out, but I think that bow is coming from maybe putting a little bit too much tension on it. But as you can see, that was actually really bad with all the little bumps in it, and it's smoothed them all out. So handy little tool, that. Always use a pipe cutter. $5-10 down at your tool store. Never just cut it through, because what it does is ends up pinching the pipe down, and you'll never get it back around, where this just slowly cuts it around and around. Now, the next tool you need in your arsenal is going to be a bender of some description. Most people wouldn't have seen a bender like this. That's pretty good for you know, big radiuses that you need to probably have. But I've come across these.
Okay. Are you saying pow? What are you saying?
Now, these are good because you can actually use them on the car. They're very easy to use. It's simply just grab it and then roll the pipe over the edge, and it actually does a very good bend, which I'll show you now. I'll put this in here, make life easier, because I need to use two hands. But these are brand new, and I've got to loosen these things up. But yeah, you simply say, well, I want a bend to start here. Just clamp that around the pipe and literally just push it over. Bang. Perfect 90 degree. There's no kinks in that. There's no, you know, there's no deflections in it. And it gets a really nice tight radius to do your bend. So, and it's so easy to use on your car. You can do it while it's in the car. Where these, you know, you got to fumble around trying to get a shifter or something on the bottom of it, and you got to hold the line, and everything's really hard. You can actually, once this is, like, you know, if this is mounted to the car, as you just saw, all you need to do is just hold it with one hand and then bend it over, and you're done. So yeah, love it. It's well worth starting to invest in these things. I mean, it's one thing if you're only going to do one car and you can't justify it. I get that. I totally get that. But I'm multiple cars in now. Like, I think I've built anywhere up to sort of 15 cars at this stage. So I've been struggling for that long. I don't even muck around anymore. I just start buying stuff because I'll always be using these things. Righto, we'll put our first double flare on this. So it's quite easy. Put it in the die so it's level with the end of the die. I know you can't see that, but where the end face is of the die, you just put it level with that. And this is actually in backwards. I'm lucky I saw that. And that there. Clamp it in. Make sure it's nice and tight. I do have my nut on there, even though the other end hasn't been flared yet. So quite easy on here. It says, so you look, this is 3/16 line. So on these dots, they do have different measurements because they are double ups on what the machine can actually do. But it does actually say right here 3/16 option 1, which means that is the first one that we need to select. And then on the other side over here, it says 3/16 option 2. So this is the one we need to start the flare. And all you do is direct it straight at the pipe, bring it around, pull it in. Number 2, double it up, undo it. And there you have it. That's your double flare. I know it's probably not going to come up too good on that camera, but yeah, that's your double flare. Easy as that. No fuss. All right, I'm finally going to address something. If you watched the Queenscliff episode, you would have seen that we had a bit of a fuel issue. We had bowls that were overflowing. They must have been doing it for a little while because I was always chasing a very rich mixture. And I think what was happening is internally they were just filling up and flowing into the manifold without actually seeing it, but started to get it where it was actually overflowing and coming out onto, filling the side of the manifold up. So when I was over in Queenscliff, I ended up getting another fuel pump to try and alleviate that problem, thinking that it might have been that just too much pressure on the needle and seat. The pumps are good for, I think it was 1 to 4 PSI, but what I'm still getting is a bouncing needle on the gauge. So I think that these needle and seats, they just can't sort of handle that pressure, and they're fluttering a little bit. And that's what I'm sort of interpreting, that gauge flicking up and down. I'll start the car up in a minute and show you what I mean, but I end up getting my hands on this pressure regulator. It's just an inline regulator that does 1 to 6 PSI. So I got a feeling these carbies are Holly 94s, I'm pretty sure. There's no markings on them. I actually bought them off a carby guy, letting him know what I wanted. So I'm pretty sure they are actually Holly ones. And from what I can tell, they really need about 2 PSI on the needle and seat. So I'm going to see if I can fit this now and get it to fix that problem. I'll show you that bouncing gauge first, and then we'll shove this in, and then hopefully that gauge stops bouncing. so far I'll call that a win. You know, we'll have to test drive this and see how it goes. I'm actually going to take it out this afternoon to go get some parts for the COMET. I've got to get some clutch lines, soft line for the clutch made up. So I'll head down there and get that made, and take this, see if it you know, if it performs a little bit better. You know, I should have been chasing this from the start. You know, I've always noticed that it was, you know, very black smoke coming out of the back. You know, pretty much on idle. Like when it was going down the road, it actually wasn't too bad, but like a kid with a new toy, I just want to go out and play with it. So I'm finally starting to go through some of the issues with this car and get it sorted, because there are always niggly things when you get back in them. You're like, oh, that's right, I've got to go fix that. So yeah, we'll take it for a test drive. It's really easy to get to. It's just on the other side of that chassis rail just there, and it's just a twist pot. So it's very easy. Just turn it up a little bit and get a little bit more fuel pressure. So yeah, it'd be nice to sort of go back through these carbs and sort of get them running a little bit better. Just because I did have a little bit of hesitancy on taking off just after you sort of crack the throttle open. That probably was directly related to this issue, having too much fuel sort of washing into the motor. Like, I hope I haven't done anything to the bores in this thing, but it hasn't done that much work, and you know, I haven't put that much money into this motor anyway, so let's just see how far we get with it. But yeah, look, I'm happy with that result. I should have done that a long time ago, but yeah, if anyone knows anyone that's in the sort of Melbourne, Australia area that can play around with these 94s and get this thing running, you know, spot on and a little bit more peppy, that would be great. You can leave a comment below. You know, some of the guys that I've known, they've disappeared. So I would like to get these, you know, cleaned up a bit and made to run a little bit better. You know, this car is just a driver. You know, unfortunately, I know a lot of people would be like, you know, why don't you take a bit more care with it? You know, salt water and all that sort of stuff that was splashing on it. But after all, it's fiberglass. So, you know, there are things that are rusting on this car, but I sort of want this to start looking like a nostalgic looking car. I don't want it to look nice and clean and shiny for the show. You know, I want to look that's more of a road warrior style thing. So, you know, I don't want to go out of my way to make things bad, but we'll just let them age the way they are. So anyway, get off this, get back onto the COMET a bit, and then later we'll take this down for a drive, and hopefully, you know, hopefully it's all good. I'll let you know. Took it for a test drive, and as you can see, did not go well. Strange thing is, it's not fuel. I figured out that it's got no spark. So I don't have much time right now to have a look at it, but I'm just going to quickly see if we've got some positive down on the coil. And then it's probably going to be a module or something like that if it's not going to be power to it. I tried on the side of the road for ages to get this going, so waited around for trailer to show up and bring it home. But we'll dig into it quickly now and just see if I can find something real quick. But I've got other things to do. I need to get it off the trailer. Now on this car, I've hidden the coil down behind the head. It's not that hard to work on, but where are we? As you can see, we've got power at the coil. So I've got no spark, got power at the coil, and if I just quickly trigger the earth side a little bit, it actually gets the fuel pump to kick in again. So I'm guessing we're going to have a module fault. So I'm going to have to dig into it another day. And like that, brake lines are done. Got the front left, front right done. And as you can see, those radiuses, they look a lot better when they're a nice tight radius, you know, in the bend rather than like a really big long one. So we've got the one going to the back, already in, up to that soft line that we're talking about. So I end up mounting that on a bracket welded to the back here. And we've just got a bolt that goes in the bottom of it, and the line's going over to each drum. I got this drum off I'm in the process of just putting wheel studs, bigger ARP wheel studs in these axles for the wheel and tyre combo that's going to go on this. So yeah, I'm mucking around with that at the moment. And today I went and got some new rubbers for the tramp rods. Pretty easy to find, to be honest. There's McKay Rubber in Australia actually got, I can't remember what they did actually call this, but they make little engine mounts and things like that for small cylinder engines, pumps, that sort of stuff. So yeah, take off that bolt. I'll be cutting this one off. It's all rusted and it won't come off, and then we'll put those on. And yeah, so there you have it. That's brake lines. It's really not that hard. It's worth giving it a go. But on the same note, please be careful, because they are your brakes. It's all well and good going, but if you have a leak stopping, you're in big trouble. So make sure you double check all your lines. Make sure you double check for leaks once you get it up and running. And maybe just go for a slow cruise first, come back, just keep checking them, and then go from there. Well, that wraps up this episode. That's brake lines done. Clutch soon to be done. We're moving along pretty well, to be honest. So look, I'll say it right now, please don't attempt to do this stuff if you're not confident on what you're doing. I've had a lot of information handed down to me by professionals with other cars over the years. I know what to look for. I don't want anyone getting hurt over something like trying to do brake lines in their backyard. It's not that costly to get a couple of brake lines done, so it's probably best to engage a professional to do this sort of work. So just be careful. So look, if you like this episode, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.